You have opened the data and have been sitting there staring at the formula bar, thinking of what function I should use to achieve the results for the desired data analysis. Not anymore. Hey there, I am Swapnil, and today we'll be learning 20 most useful Excel functions which I've been repeatedly using in my decade-long experience of using Excel. So without wasting any time, let's get to the screen. So as you can see on the screen, today we'll be learning these 20 functions, starting with the sum function. So I've got a data of a fictional company which sells software to the customers globally. And we have got the sales data for the year 2025. So the first thing that we are going to calculate is the total units sold in the year 2025. So that will be sum of the units sold column, and I'll close the bracket and press enter. So as you can see, we have sold 55,000 units in this year. In the same way, we'll also calculate the total sales revenue for that year. So I'll again use the sum formula or the sum function, and this time we'll be adding up the revenue column. So I've selected that, and this will be the total sales revenue for that year. So the next analysis that we are going to do is average sales per employee. So since the data is already at employee level, we'll just take an average of the revenue column, which will then give us the average sales per employee. So I've used the average function on the revenue column, and as you can see, the average sales per employee is $35,623 in that year. So next analysis that we want to do is the highest sales that any employee has done in that year, for which we'll be using the max function. So what max does is, from the data that you are giving it, it will tell you what is the maximum value. So in the revenue column, Excel will return us the maximum value, which is $96,000. So that is the highest revenue that any employee has done. And next, to calculate the lowest employee sales for that year, we'll be using the minimum or the min function. And again, the array will be our revenue column. So if one of the employee or maybe many of the employee has done 0 revenue in that year. So now we have got the data, and we need to know what are the total employees for which this data is. So for this, we'll be using the count A function, count A. I'll tell you the reason why we are using count A. Count A is a wholesome function which calculates or counts all the values which are not blank. So it can be numbers, text, and other characters too. So we'll give it the employee name as the array. And so as it tells us, there are 700 employees in this company, and this data is about those 700 employees. We could have also used just the count function, but if we try to apply the same function on the employee names, it will give us the count of 0. There's a simple reason, because count function only works on numbers. So instead of the employee, if we give it the reference of maybe unit sold column, it will give us the same result of 700 employees. So there is a basic differentiation. Count function counts all the numerical values which are not blank, and count a function gives you the count of all the cells which are not blank and may contain anything, text, number, or characters, etc. Let's go to our checklist and see how many functions we have covered so far. So we have covered sum, average, min, max, count, and COUNTIF. So if you're liking the video so far, please give it a thumbs up or like and subscribe to the channel. So moving on to the next functions or the next analysis that we need to do. Next analysis that we'll be doing is counting the male employees in the company, for which we'll be using the COUNTIF function. So what COUNTIF does is, it will give you the count of cells which are following the criteria you have given for the range. So first thing, it's asking us for the range. So range for us will be the gender column and the criteria will be male. We close the bracket and you can see that there are 332 male employees in the company. Now we can do the same thing with the summation function, for which it will sum only for the cells which are following the criteria. So for this task, we need to calculate the revenue that is done by the female employees. So we'll be using SUMIF, and the range again will be the gender, which is female, and the sum range, or the thing that will be summing up if the criteria is met, will be the revenue. So we get the total revenue that is done by the female employees. Now there can be multiple criteria you can have for both the count and sum functions. So for which we have got COUNTIFS and SUMIFS function. So if you have more than one criteria to meet, you can use the ifs. So here you can see that there are two criteria for the next analysis. First is they should be female and they must have sold more than 100 units in that year. So we need to calculate the count of such employees. So we'll be using COUNTIFS for this analysis. So first criteria range will be gender. Gender should be female. And second criteria would be units sold. And the criteria will be more than 100 units sold. So here you'll have to keep in mind that whatever more than, less than, equal to symbol you're using, you have to put it separately in inverted comma, and then you have to use and symbol followed by the number that you want to go with that operator. I'm closing the bracket and we get the count of employees who have sold more than 100 units and are females. Similarly, we can use SUMIFS function for the next analysis. So the next analysis is we need to get the sum of revenue for the males who are product specialists. So we'll be using SUMIFS for this analysis, as it has got multiple criteria that follow, and then we need the summation for that. So firstly, we'll need to give the sum range, which is the revenue column. Then we need to give the first criteria. So the criteria 1 would be the gender, and gender will be male. Nextly, we want their job title to be product specialist. So we'll give the criteria range as the job title, and the criteria will be product specialist. Close the function, and we have the revenue done by male product specialists. So the next analysis that we are going to do is finding out the employee ID of the person who has done the highest sales. So we are going to achieve this using two functions together, which is match and index. So let's start with match. So what match does is, it will give you the row number or the position of the cell which holds your lookup value in the array that you have given to it. So for us, the lookup value is the highest sale amount. The array is the revenue column. Thirdly, it's asking us for the match type. In our case, we need to find the exact match for the highest sales amount. So I'm selecting match, exact match. I'll close it, and it has given us that in the 52th cell of the array, or the 52th row of the array, is the highest sales amount sitting. Now we will feed this to the index formula, which will then give us the employee ID. So what index function does is, after you give it an array and a row number, it will match that and give you the return value based on it. So let's try to understand it by using the function. So index is asking you for the array. The array that we need in return is employee ID, right? Now it's asking us for the row number, which we have already found out using the match function. So we'll give the reference to this and close the function. You see that we have got the employee ID for that person who has done the highest sales. Now instead of having this into two separate cells, we can just copy this match function, and we can paste it here in the place of row number. So this is how in the single function you can get the employee ID of the person who has done the highest sales. Similar results you can get using the VLOOKUP function. So VLOOKUP will ask you for the lookup value as in the match function. So let's try to get the name of the employee which corresponds to this employee ID which we have found out using the index match. So lookup value for us will be the employee ID. Now it's asking us the table array. So here you'll need to select the entire table array where both your lookup value is sitting and the return value is also sitting. So we'll select employee ID and the full name, and next thing it's asking us what is the column index number in which your return value is sitting. So for this, the employee name is sitting in the second column of the array. So we'll select the second column. Again, it's asking us for that you need approximate match or exact match. We need exact match. So I'll select that. And as you can see, the employee ID was of Kevin Morris. So that's what we have got in the VLOOKUP. So there are a few constraints with the VLOOKUP. Your lookup array or the lookup value should always be sitting in the first column of the array that you need to keep in mind. And the return value should always be on the right hand side columns. Let's go to the checklist, and we have learned index match, VLOOKUP, COUNTIFs, SUMIFs. Okay. Now let's get to the remaining functions, and next function that we are going to learn is left function. So what left does is it will extract the number of characters you ask it for from the left of the cell. So in this case, we need to find out the first name of the employee. So left function is asking us for the text, which will be the name of the employee. And Kevin is of 5 characters. So I'll give it 5. And this way we get the first name of the employee. Second function that we are going to learn is the length. What length function does is it will give you the total count of the characters in that cell. So if I give it the reference to our employee name, it will tell us that there are total 12 characters in the name of Kevin Morris. This time we are going to learn the write function. So what write function does is similar to the left function, it will give you the number of characters from the right hand side of the cell. So this time let's try to get the surname of the employee or the last name of the employee. So it will be the write function and the text will be employee name, and it's asking us for the number of characters. So it will be 6, and let me close it, and we get the surname, which is Morris. The next function that we are going to learn is mid function. So let's say here we don't have any middle name for the employees, but let's say we need to extract the word employee from the cell B6. So I'll give equal to mid, and the text will be the cell B6. Then it's asking us the start number. So total is of 5 characters, then there is a space which is the 6th character. The start number will be 7. And the word employee is of 8 characters. So we need to extract 8 characters. And this way we'll get the extraction for the middle word. So this is helpful only when you know exactly how many characters you need to extract and what is the starting number, which is hardly the case when you're handling these formulas or the functions with actual data. So we use length function and one more function which is called find interchangeably to achieve the results that we have got in this case with the mid function. So what we'll do is, so let's open the find function. First thing it's asking us for is what should it find? So in our case, we need to find the position of space. So I'll give the space in double inverted commas. And next is asking us where should it find? So that will be the cell B6. And the third syntax is start number. Either you can give 1 as a start number or you can completely ignore that syntax and close the bracket. So here it's saying that the space is on the 6th position. So now let's try incorporating that into the mid function that we used. So let's copy this find function and instead of 7, we'll ask it to find the space, and from the next position we need to start extracting the second word, right? So hence we are giving it find the space, add 1 to it, and then start extracting from that. So if we close the function now, we'll get the same result. We can go it further. So you don't know how many characters there are there in this word, right? The employee. So what you can do is you can find out the position of second space, and then you can subtract the position of first space, and you'll get the character of the number of characters which are there in the word. You can try it as homework. Okay. Now the last function that we need to see is the trim function. So It might happen whenever you get data from the system. There are multiple leading spaces or extra spaces between two words, or there might be preceding spaces. So we can use trim function to cut out any extra spaces that are there in the cell. So let's try to do that with the word revenue. And I'll give 2 spaces after the word, 2 spaces before the word. Now let's use the length function to find out the length of this word. And you see it's showing us 11 characters, but the revenue word is of 7 characters. So let's use trim function now on that cell. I'll give reference to this, which has got 2 spaces at the beginning and 2 after the word. Now it has extracted the word without by deleting the spaces. So again, now if we try to give it reference to this cell, you see now it is giving us the correct length of the word revenue, which is 7. Now let's see how many functions we have covered out of the 20. So we have covered trim, we have covered length, we have covered find, we have covered left, right, mid. Okay. So now let's see the if function. So as we saw in COUNTIF and SUMIF, if stands for a logical function, or we need to check if that criteria is true or not. So let's start with the if function. So if is asking us what will be the logical test. So in this case, if I give reference to this cell and say, if this is equal to 7, then say yes, and if it's false, then say no. So we are getting yes because it's equal to 7. If we change it to 8, it will say no. So in some cases, there can be multiple criteria that you need to test for. So we can use the ifs function in that case. So it will ask us for the multiple logical tests and what if that thing is true. So let's say if this is equal to 8, then say yes, or we can say then say 8, and then it will ask us the next logical test. Then we can say if this is equal to 7, then say 7. And you can give multiple criteria as you like. So now it's equal to 8, so that's why it's saying 8. If we change it to 7, it will say 7. So in this way, you can use ifs for multiple criteria. Now let's also see using the logic and or. So and or will give you the results in true and false. So and will give you true if both the conditions are met, and or will give you the result as true if either of the condition is met. So let's first see and. So let's say equal to and the first logical will be if this is equal to 7, and second logical will be if this is equal to 7. So in this case, only one cell is 7. That's why it's giving us false. If we change this also to 7, as per the logical we have said, it says true. Similar way, we can use or, where we need out of multiple conditions, only if one condition is met, or will give us as true. So let's say we are using OR and we are saying if this is equal to 6 or this is equal to 6, then you should give true. But in this case, both are not 6. If I change any one of them to 6, it will say true. Even if both are 6, it will say true. So that way you can see that we are getting the result for OR conditions. So we have covered ifs and an OR. The last thing that we'll be covering in this video is today and now. So these are very useful when you are finding out the number of days that are passed for the certain date, or what will be the next thing from today. So today is the function which will give you today's date based on the local calendar of your computer. So I'll open this function. There is no need to give any syntax or criteria in this function. You can simply close it and it will return you the today's date. So on the day of shooting, it's 20th Feb 2026. And if you need both the date and current time, you can use the now function and you can just simply close it and it will give you the date as well as the time at that particular instance. Thank you for following along till here. So I request you to like the video if you have learned new functions today, and also subscribe to the channel to see more such informational videos. See you in the next video. Thank you.